Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And YouTube and Google go back on their word saying they were going to unblock every creator they had previously blocked. That's not the case. We're going to get into that, as well as Bill C-8 and C-9. Mark Carney is bringing censorship to Canada. It's not just happening in Canada, it's happening all around the world. Digital ID, digital currency, they're bringing the cage up around us. It's time to stand up. Let's get into the first article, or X.
Yes, so from Camus, Alex Jones just called YouTube's bluff and then folded instantly after YouTube's parent company announced the end to political censorship, claiming previously banned creators were welcome to go back. Jones put their new policy to test. He launched a new channel in what was described as a real-world stress test of their commitment to free speech.
Okay, and let's get into the clip here. He's going to talk directly about it. It was him and Nick Fuentes. These are some of the most controversial previous figures that were on YouTube. So this was the perfect stress test for it, and they completely failed. This is Steve Bannon that's interviewing Alex Jones here.
And I think you got your point across. When Google came out the other day in YouTube, you got to explain this to the audience. They said, you know, everybody we banned, and they threw out Alex Jones, Dan Bongino, Steve Bannon, others are now welcome to go back. Correct me if I'm wrong. You and Nick Fuentes, I think, put up channels. And did Google take them down right away? Did YouTube take them down right away? Or did I misread that news release?
No, they did. I had Nick on the show, and I said we should stress test it. That was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Central. I said, let's stress test it. And I told the listeners, a lot of you had your channels taken. I said,
yeah, and they just completely lied about this, and now they're getting called out. I hope the administration goes after them.
However, I will say they did open new channels. They said that they were able to reinstate old channels, and you had to go through the back, like talking to YouTube themselves and ask them to unban you. So I don't know if there was still some sort of censorship at the time saying, oh, if anybody tries to open an account called Alex Jones or Nick Fuentes, it will get banned again. I don't know. I'm just trying to be as charitable.
No, that's completely...
According to the actual instructions that YouTube and Google did
Okay,
give
no,
to
that's
them.
completely wrong, because Google actually came out with a statement here and saying they have the right to continue to ban anybody. So maybe you missed the statement. I'm not sure.
But what I'm saying is maybe the initial ban, the second banning, was because they opened new
No,
channels.
Google came out with the statement. Google came out with a statement after the second banning saying they have the right to keep them banned.
Yes, but what I was saying...
So it had nothing to do with the channel.
Fine.
Every talk show host or pundit or journalist or political victim of the Democrats that was censored in all these Democrat-directed purges that really started in 2016, accelerated into 2020 and then on. I said, you should all now, because they've told Jim Jordan via Alphabet, the parent company of Google and YouTube, that they're stopping it, and anybody politically removed, they're going to put back up. I said, I believe this is just more talk. Just like the Paul Weiss law firm promised to stop doing lawfare against Trump and his supporters, they're still the ones running the lawsuits against me and laughing the whole time. It's just hilarious, trying to literally close our doors and involve the Justice Department and all the rest of it. The holdovers that were under investigation, but then that got pulled. So I said, let's upload our channel. So we did. It was up till about 2 a.m. I got about 100,000 followers in just that brief amount of time. Nick, I heard him say on his show, I got 30,000 followers. And about 2 a.m. in the morning, they jerked both his channel and my channel down. And I knew that. I mean, I told listeners, I said, I believe it'll be down by tomorrow. And it lasted.
And pause it for one moment. I don't want to get striked here. That being said, this is the globalist playbook. They say they'll give mouth service to Trump saying they're doing one thing, and then they'll try to deceptively continue to do their actions. This is not just happening on YouTube. This is happening with the lawfare and a lot of other things internationally.
Just about 12 hours or so.
But here's what I understand. What did you and Nick talk about during that time, or what is up on these channels that's so controversial that now that they made a deal with Jordan and they're going to say, and by the way, they're blaming it on Biden, but this all happened beforehand. What was in the content that they're making a rationale that you two guys, given they got this new policy of total free speech, what are you saying that required that even reaches any standard that they would pull down?
They actually put a statement out yesterday afternoon. I actually have it right here. And they said, oh, it's a pilot program, and we're still probably not going to let them come back. We're still just going to decide So it's exactly what I thought. It's a fraud. It's the standard procedure when they get in trouble in Congress, get caught in political meddling, political persecution, election influencing, all directed, as we know, by the DOJ and the Biden FBI. Even going back to Obama, we now know they were behind the scenes 2015, 2016, trying to suppress Trump, you, myself, and others. So now that that's out in the open, it's totally illegal. Now they're acting like, to Jim Jordan's committee, that they're actually doing something. So we did it as a test. I only uploaded one video, and I said, okay, the word is Comey will be indicted along with Letitia James the next 5 days. And then I said, and this is a stress test to see if they are going to allow this to stay up. I believe they will not. I believe that that this is just a stunt to try to get the Republican committee to move along. And so they're playing possum. And then I also talked about...
We can leave it there. And we're going to have Vivek Ramaswamy talk about this as well. But he put out a full statement, and he wants some action and results from this. And I hope actions and results come from this. They had this worked out to a science. They've been doing this for 10 years, banning people. As of recent times, it's been a lot harder to ban people because of Congress. They're bringing a lot of these tech CEOs in front of Congress and grilling them. So they're no longer banning people like they were. The problem is a lot of people, they are keeping banned. And there's no way to really get around that at this point, other than there was a lot of hope because Google did give that statement, said they were going to unban all of these political kind of prosecutions of bannings.
And I would also say, like, within Google and within YouTube, we do know that there are still a lot of people, maybe still at the top, that continue to want to suppress and censor those that they don't agree with. While the top brass might be trying to give lip service to those that were censored, maybe the ones that are behind the scenes are still trying to uphold their ridiculous policies.
Well, you know, and I totally agree with you, other than the fact Google came out with that statement, and that statement had to have come from the top brass. So I figured the top brass was trying to set everybody back in line. The problem is, once that statement came out, it showed they actually want to keep these people banned. They don't want to unban them. So maybe some people have gone unbanned. Maybe some liberals were banned and now they're unbanned. But the big conservative controversial figures who really aren't that controversial anymore in today's climate are not being unbanned.
So let's see what Ramaswamy said. And he had been going kind of under the radar for a while.
Well, and I also think this is a huge hole within the multimedia space. And I think X could capitalize. They're just not turning it over to a video platform as much as they should be.
This is a message for the leadership of YouTube.
Pause it. Put it on 2 times speed because of the music. We'll get around it that way. And it's a pretty long clip as well.
2 times or 1.5?
Two times because it is 5-minute speech.
Okay.
Sorry if it's a little bit quick, but it's a 5-minute speech. We kind of want to get through it.
Frankly, I probably could have called you privately, but I think it's better to just talk about this in the open on this particular issue. My understanding is in the last 24 hours, you locked the accounts and shut down the accounts of 2 guys, Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones. They have big followings on the American right. I think it's better if you just unlock those accounts and let the guys be heard. And I say this not because I'm some particular fan or vice versa. At least one of them. Nick is probably not a particularly big fan of mine. No more than Jimmy Kimmel is, by the way, for very different reasons. That's beside the point. It doesn't matter. The reason I'm asking you to do it is that censorship isn't good for America. It's antithetical to our culture. And we're the country on God's green earth where we're able to talk to each other in the open. And I want to credit YouTube and Google and your parent company and so much of your competitors in Silicon Valley for creating the first instance of the free and open internet with search engines. It's a beautiful thing for democratizing speech. But I think we take a step in the wrong direction when we choke those same technologies that allow us to access open debate and open ideas. It breeds discontent. It breeds frustration. It actually breeds mistrust. If you tell people they can't speak, that's when they scream. And if you tell people they can't scream, that's when they tear things down. So I think free speech is a precondition for peace. It's a precondition for the scientific method. It's a precondition for our shared unity, our shared national identity as Americans. I can understand why you might think that certain types of speech or certain things that are said that are hurtful to other people or that may spread misinformation or may they count as violent or dangerous threats shouldn't be allowed on your platform. I personally take a broad view of what type of speech is an expression of an opinion that's protected, but it's a separate discussion about whether somebody says a particular thing that you think doesn't belong on your platform. That's one category of speech moderation. There's a different category of saying that you may demonetize certain people. You're not going to pay them. But even if they're able to speak on your platform, it's not necessarily their right to be paid for doing so, putting advertisers next to their name. That's a separate discussion. Personally, I don't like any of those forms of speech suppression as a general matter, but at least those are discussions that reasonable minds can have. There's a whole separate third category of censorship, though, that I think is particularly harmful, which is the idea that just because of who you are, your name and who you are, you don't get to express any idea, whether it's misinformation, hateful speech, whether it's dangerous, or whatever you deem it to be, irrespective of that. You're not making that judgment. Just based on who you are, you don't get to speak. I think that breeds mistrust. I don't think that's good for our country. There's legal arguments to be had. I've made legal arguments elsewhere in my books, in Wall Street Journal pieces, and there are legal arguments that you could construct that say that if a tech company is protected by Section 230, the government created shield of immunity.
And this was a great point for Vivek Ramaswamy to kind of reemerge. He speaks his point very well, and he does not like Nick Fuentes. A lot of people on the right don't, but he still wants to protect his speech. And that was traditionally a liberal value. And the liberals have forgotten about this. I don't even know moderate liberals that don't want to censor speech at this point. This is only a conservative value. It's very important that conservatives speak up for even people that they don't like to have the right to speak right now.
That if a tech companies respond even indirectly to threats of government officials, maybe that is actually even a legal First Amendment violation. That's not even what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is not a legal point, it's just a cultural point. It's the question of whether this is good or bad for America. And I think we live in a moment right now where when we tell people, whether it's the government or even a powerful company, when you tell people that because of who you are, you deserve not to be heard, I think that actually divides us. Even if it's done with the best of intentions, I think it brings most of the rest of the country together. In the long run, it actually throws kerosene on the very flame you were trying to quash. And so that's my ask to you. I'm not trying to do this in some type of faux indignation, angry way that escalates some political fight. That's not the goal. I actually think that it's often possible to get to the right answer through just reasonable, open dialogue. That's what I hope this is. I hope you're able to reconsider a decision that you made may have been a wrong decision. And I think we need more space as a country when people do make a wrong decision to be able to be given an off-ramp, to be able to say that, you know what, after thinking about it, yeah, we agree, we're persuaded that all else equal, even though we intended well, we ought to let people speak and be heard. That's what I hope happens here. And so my ask is, again, speaking as a guy who, from Jimmy Kimmel to Nick Fuentes, probably don't like me very much. I don't care. That doesn't matter. It's not about the content. It's about the principle. I'd ask you to restore the accounts of those guys. Believe me, it will be a down payment on beginning to reunite this country, a project on which we have yet a very long way to go. Thanks a lot for considering. This is a message for the...
And I actually didn't watch the end of that the first time I watched it through. That is a down payment on bringing this country back together. And I think that is probably the best line of his statement, but a very good statement. And this is why, even though I didn't like what Jimmy Kimmel said, and I understood that they did have the right to let him go, I don't want to censor speech in any way, shape, or form. And on YouTube, with YouTube, they do have the option to not monetize these creators. Although I don't agree with that either. It is an option to let all creators back on the platform and just not monetize the ones you don't want. That would be a compromise.
But when, speaking of that compromise, where does the whole, well, they're a private company, they can, remove whoever they want, where does that stand with, while at the same time, and not that I agree or disagree with any of these points, but while at the same time, a lot of people on the right as well are calling for Destiny and Hassan to be taken off of Twitch, including Elon Musk.
Well, Destiny actually had calls for violence, so I can understand that. A call for violence, direct violence in a 20-minute clip where he does it repeatedly. He's actually crossed the line. That being said, I don't want to see private companies. I would actually like to see more protections on speech, not less. So I think private companies maybe could reserve the right not to monetize. At this point, they have the right to fire people at any point. And that's why I was very worried about the Jimmy Kimmel incident broadening itself into YouTube. And just because the conservatives are supporting banning Jimmy Kimmel, if that goes over to YouTube and then the next administration gets in and it's not conservative, you're going to see more speech censorship. So this is a time we really got to stand up for our political opponents to have free speech, I think.
And yes, so Ramaswamy to YouTube, restore Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes, Ohio gubernatorial candidate Ramaswamy is pressing YouTube to restore accounts of Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes. I think it's better if you can just unlock these accounts and let the guys be heard. Said in a YouTube video, censorship isn't good for America. It's antithetical to our culture. And also it's getting close to what a lot of other cultures and other countries are starting to do right now,
well,
almost in coordination.
All the global South already had censorship, or the majority of it. Now we're just talking about Western culture here. All Western cultures in lockstep are bringing digital IDs, digital currencies coming to the EU. Speech censorship was the thing that they pre-oriented all these digital IDs and digital currencies upon. And now they're trying to do that in Canada as well. We're going to get into Bill C-8 and C-9 in here in a minute. But we have to realize they're bringing a gate up around, a prison up around Western society right now. And the last bastion of free speech is the United States Constitution.
Because the United States is actually one of the few that doesn't even put any holdovers on the free speech and on how it was written in the Constitution. I'm thinking of Canada, where they do have the notwithstanding clause, where at any point they can decide to take that away, basically, is what it does.
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that notwithstanding clause with Bill Maher here in a moment as well. But that being said, the United States doesn't only have free speech in their constitution. They have a long history of fighting for their political opponents to have speech. So a lot of countries don't have that history. So they're able to implement these hate speech laws in direct contradiction to their constitution, like the Canadian government.
Speaking of the Canadian government, there is something concerning that kind of came up, and only through independent media, I think, has it been talked. And it is almost mirror image of what they were trying to do before that we also spoke against. But Matt Strauss says you need to be very concerned about Bill C-18. It allows Melanie Joly to kick anyone off the internet with no trial and no warrant. Worse, you won't even be allowed to say you've been kicked off. This is the Emergency Measures Act on steroids, only permanent and secret.
Yeah, YouTube creators that are giving independent news like us, if we were still in Canada, even if we're international, the Canadian government will ban us. If we're talking probably Canadian politics, they will just disappear from Canada. They won't even be able to say why it will be against the law. There's going to be no appeals process. There's going to be no oversight process on this, and that's written into the bill. This is the most dangerous censorship law I've seen of any Western country to this point. That being said, it's not quite passed, and Mark Carney doesn't have a majority government yet, but it looks like he's going to try to put up a massive budget that will probably get knocked down by the Conservatives. He is then going to say Conservatives are against the Canadian people and try to win a majority government. If he gets a majority government, bills like this are going to be guaranteed to pass. Even in a minority government, he may be able to pay off one of the other parties to vote with him and get the censorship bill in effect, especially before an election.
So this is how it's written. So for example, Security of Canadian Telecommunications System Minister's Order 15.2, Section 1, if there is a reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunications system against any threat, including that of interference, manipulation, disruption, or degradation, the minister may, by order and after consultation with the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness and with the persons the minister considers appropriate, A, prohibit the telecommunications service provider from providing any service to any specified person, including a telecommunications service provider.
This means they'll be able to ban your cell phone use and your internet use. And with digital ID coming to Canada, they're going to have a way to enforce this. If you need this for your job, you're not going to actually have a way to make money. You're going to have to look for an entire new career.
And then under how it would work, for example, in non-disclosure section 3, the order may also include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence or some or all of its contents by any person.
And I would like to say one more thing about banning people from cell phones and the internet. The Tesla Pi phone is rumored to come out with a new chip that is direct to satellite. If that's the case and Canadian people become othered by their own government, this Pi phone could be a highly sought after commodity internationally on a black market.
And provision of information also 15.4. The minister may require any person to provide to the minister or any person designated by the minister within any time and subject to any conditions that the minister may specify any information that the minister believes on reasonable grounds is relevant for the purpose of making, amending, or revoking an order under section 15.1 or 15.2 or a regulation under paragraph 15.8, section 1A, or verifying compliance or preventing non-compliance with such an order or regulation. So giving the minister a lot of power in this case.
Yeah, and I do recommend Mark Nixon. He's somebody that's from Canada, an investigative journalist, and we typically feature him on our show, but he did a wonderful video going through each segment of this and putting it into common language. It is scary. He's not the only one that is doing this. Every single content creator that still has a voice in Canada is speaking up against these laws. This will mean the end of free speech in Canada if this goes through, and it's in conjunction with multiple other bills.
And I will also mention quickly, I mean, they don't have the means to really do it, but if you're in Mexico, we are here in Mexico, that is what they're trying to do with our own telecommunications bill, and it is some of the ideas that come with having to identify yourself before you can even purchase any cell phone or any internet service provider. It just means that they will also be able to find you easier if they wanted to do any sort of censorship also here. So it is more of a globalized plan, and again, we also spoke about what's happening in the UK, so it's everywhere.
Yeah, in countries like Mexico, if they implement similar laws, which they're currently trying to do, this Pi phone, I don't think they're going to have any way to really ban it. In Canada, there may be ways that if police officers see you on the street, they will literally take your phone. This Pi phone is going to become an extremely hot commodity if censorship continues on the way that it is right now.
But also, Canada is trying to pass another one by the Liberals, another bill from Pascal Engelhardt. It says, there we go, the cat's out of the bag. The Liberals' Bill C-9, so we just talked about Bill C-8, turns any crime into a hate crime if it is tied to national origin.
And we talk a lot about this on our show, hate speech and specialty groups. You have specialty punishments for certain citizens, but not others. You protect certain groups, but not others. You protect. Hate speech is completely illegal in Canada, except for certain people. Like it creates a two-tiered society.
So this would be the amendment. So hate crime, offense motivated by hatred, again, not fully described. Section 320.0010, section 1. Everyone who commits an offense referred to in this section as the included offense under this act or any other act of parliament if the commission of the included offense is motivated by hatred based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical ability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, is A, guilty of an indictable offense and liable to the punishment provided in subsection 5, or B, guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction.
And the crazy thing about this original bill in its original form wanted to give you life in prison for any hate speech. Say you had 1 year before the actual crime, but it was connected with some kind of hate speech language, that would be life in prison. That is draconian and crazy. I think they knocked it down to around 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. But even the 10 years, the punishment doesn't fit the crime here. And they want to be able to keep people in line by threat of enforcement.
And we have spoken again about how hate speech in a lot of these countries and with a lot of these laws is not fully defined. Like they don't explicitly say, here they say, I mean, it may also include national origin, and they added that one in, but it will already had a laundry list of things, and they are able to determine, depending who's in power. I'm not just saying it's going to be the Liberals, the Conservatives could do the same and go against the complete opposite people and try to censor and imprison them if they give any opinions. So having these hate speech laws just in general becomes terrifying for the whole citizenry, regardless of what your opinions or your positions are, because it gives the government, grants the government the power to determine what is hate speech and then what they're going to do to go censor or act upon it.
Well, and then you have these governments working in conjunction with these private companies, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sorry I got upset earlier, but Google's saying one thing and then they're doing another. And then they're having to revise that with a statement telling the truth because they're scared of a freaking lawsuit. But why are they just following in lockstep? Because these private companies in the United States either, number one, agree, so they're implementing it in the UK, the EU, in Canada, Australia, all these other Western countries, or they're scared for their own basic survival because the US government won't stand up for them. Donald Trump needs to stand up for his tech companies and for free speech, saying we will protect our investments, our companies.
And to end this kind of section on everything that's happening, funnily enough, Bill Maher, who usually I don't agree with on too much, has to school a Canadian on why the US does have free speech and why Canada doesn't. The mere fact that hate speech is a thing and it exists and it is something that the government can go after you for, in itself just means you do not have free speech because you cannot speak freely.
Well, I have to say there was a couple, I typically gather the articles for this, and there was actually quite a few clips of Bill Maher schooling liberals on this. In this particular case, it dealt with Canada. That's why I added in here. But he also schooled Seth Green, saying Trump's infringing on free speech and cancellation and this and that. Bill Maher literally said the liberals have been doing that for well over a decade. And that's the truth. And he said, and he went on to say, they're doing it through hate speech laws and they're doing it all around the world and they're doing it in conjunction with private companies. Seth Rogen was absolutely stunned and he didn't have anything to say after that. But let's look at this Tom Green clip real quick.
And I think what a lot of newer liberals don't understand, the non-classical ones, is that the speech that you don't like and that offends you and that is the most outrageous is the most important to protect because that is the first one that will go and the first one that will create an excuse to continue with censorship and censoring everybody. But yes, let's see what Bill Maher says.
I like the fact that I have the music I have and they can't change it because
1.5.
you see they do.
So he is speaking to comedian Tom Green. I forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, and Tom Green is a Canadian comedian. He was really big back in my time. I would say, man, he has really become part of the system. He was really part of the anti-culture at one point.
to change songs because, woke Canadian assholes, for example, are the type of people who don't believe in free speech like they don't anymore in Germany or England. And so, like, they will change songs. I saw.
We have freedom of speech in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Yeah. Well, you got to fight for it.
You can say whatever we want up there.
Okay, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, we can say whatever we want up there until they pull the notwithstanding clause saying you have free speech, notwithstanding you say this, and this about this group, and this group. And we just showed the new bills they're trying to put in. They already have bills that aren't quite as draconian and acted into law in Canada.
I think it's a little overblown. There was something
it's
about
not
sharing news on.
no, it's not Canada,
social
but
media.
England has arrested people for opinions on the internet.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not down with that. And
I
so
think
is
there's been
Germany.
some misinformation about me getting all Canadian right now, but there's been some misinformation about Canadian freedom of speech though that's been floating around out there. Like we've got freedom of speech in Canada. It's in our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We have freedom of the press, freedom of assembly.
Yeah, well, just because something's in a charter, I mean, we have it too, and Trump is threatening that, and sometimes the
But I
left
mean,
is threatening that.
I've never experienced a situation where I can't say something up there. There are hate speech laws in Canada, so there are things you can't say. But you know what? Who would want to say that shit anyways, right? So
Well,
but-
that's not what free speech means.
right, it's a
That's
slight.
why-
It's a slight, but there's
I mean, there's a
clearly,
reason,
there's a clearly
And this is why we love Bill Maher. Even though I may agree with him, disagree with him politically, he has sanity and he speaks it quite often, especially right here. Tom Green is going to be caught in his own words.
defined definition of what hate speech is. So it's not overreaching. It's fairly specific. It's
the
not
Supreme
really
Court-
pretty much say anything you want except for extreme things that you would not agree with. I would think, and that nobody would really want to agree with in
No,
a
that's
civilized
no.
society.
You don't know what free speech is then. You don't know.
Well,
That's not what free speech is. That's
Okay.
the definition of not free speech.
Okay.
Like what everybody thinks. Not everybody thinks the same. The Supreme Court ruled in our country
Yeah,
that the Nazis could march in Skokie, Illinois,
yeah,
which they were marching in because it is a community of a lot of Holocaust survivors, many of whom were still alive at the time.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court said, as abhorrent as that is,
Yeah.
that is what free speech is about. Anybody can defend the speech that we all like, but sometimes it changes what people like, and you just don't want to be limited that way. Now, if you are literally inciting violence or kiddie porn or something like that, yes, there are things, and they're already illegal. But it gets very dangerous in my view.
there was a lot of talk.
And thank you, Bill Maher, for saying it and saying it directly to him. He thought he's going to have you because, Canada, you don't know anything about Canada. We talk about Canada a lot on the show because that's where we're originally from. That's the country we fled. We now live in Mexico because of the political climate.
And because I'm Mexican.
Yeah, and you're Mexican. Tom Green thinks, nobody would want to say that anyway. Wait till a conservative government gets in there and you've already passed all these laws. They're going to just switch the protected groups, the protected classes, and the protected subject matter. So now you are offending people and now you can be thrown in jail and you're the one that passed those laws.
And that's a problem. To get them unpassed or to remove them is way too difficult. That probably won't happen. And again, once you cede power, it doesn't matter who's at the top, they will continue to use it.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit intense on this subject matter in this section just because, man, it really gets me going.
And because you can't talk about free speech if you're not a free speech absolutist, which includes allowing all the speech you don't like, all the speech you don't agree with, and even all the speech that you find abhorrent, disgusting, etc. That's the most important one to protect.
And last week when I was protecting Jimmy Kimmel's right to speak, I said, yeah, they do have the right to farm, but I would like to see private business laws expanded so that they can't fire people for their speech when they're not at work. Why did I say that? Because I knew something like this was going to come up. Bill C-8 and C-9 in Canada are absolutely draconian, and it's happening in every Western country around the world, except for the United States right now, thanks to Donald Trump.
But it's not like they haven't tried. Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just double check that we're still on and stuff. Okay.
Okay, let's go into the next segment. And what is this digital ID? Okay. Why don't you introduce it?
Kind of. I don't. You do it.
Okay, so digital ID is being pressed in the UK and all around the world in simultaneous lockstep. We've been covering this on this channel for years now, from the WEF to the UN. This is global governance at its finest. They want to censorship. They want to censor speech, bring a digital ID in, and then go into digital currency.
Yes. Let's get into the article.
Okay, let's get into the article here.
So, from Wide Awake Media, journalist Alex Newman, Bill Gates, the UN, and the WEF, World Economic Forum, through digital ID, CBDCs, and JBJA passport infrastructure, are building a giant digital gulag for all of humanity. And again, it's not just like it's happening in the big countries that you usually hear about. We live in Mexico, I am Mexican, and we are seeing the same measures being taken even in smaller countries or countries that you wouldn't consider would take these measures. Also, like Vietnam, a bunch of other countries where it's already been implemented. And of course, I mean, we have to mention China.
Well, if they get all these other Western countries to adopt this, it's going to be very easy. All the other smaller countries that don't have big budgets are just going to fall in line, especially when they're offered new NGO money. That's why it's very important for a place like the United States to stand up against this. Anywhere they're trying to bring this digital ID in, even if you're forced to adopt it, use it sparingly and fight against it to the best of your ability. I know it's hard because I was living in Canada.
So this is from Glenn Beck's podcast he does on Sundays. If you don't watch it, it usually brings really interesting guests in.
And we're going to have a bunch of clips and interesting takes on people that describe digital ID and its further implications. A lot of people don't realize that, like, oh, I already give my biometrics. I already do this. No, they are putting a jail up around you and you don't even know it yet.
And this is a 1.5 speed in case it's too fast.
Talk to me about the 50 and 5 plan.
So the UN has partnered with Bill Gates on this, what they call digital public infrastructure. It's a very fancy term. And I think the simplest way to understand it is they're building a giant digital gulag for all of humanity. So the UN Development Program has officially launched this. It was officially launched at the end of last year, where they're going to get 50 governments, they call them countries, but really they mean governments, to impose at least some major element of this digital public infrastructure on their population within 5 years. So 2028.
Passports.
Digital IDs, and those are already emerging. In fact, many states are developing these. I just went through the airport yesterday. You can scan your digital ID QR code, right? So that's happening.
And that's really one of the main reasons for the COVID
absolutely
nonsense.
The architecture that was laid down is the backbone of this global control grid that they're building. So then you've got the central bank digital currencies, which are already being unveiled. Right? They've already been released. The World Economic Forum just said a few days ago, 98% of the governments and central banks in the world are working on these CBDCs.
Digital currency will not work without a digital ID. That's why it's so important you shut them down at the first step. The first step is actually censorship and Bill C-8 and C-9, but the real physical first step is digital ID. If they don't get that through, they can't bring a digital currency that's programmable, and that's the important thing. They can still bring digital currency in, but that digital currency will have to allow freedom.
Once they're fully operational, I guarantee you, they're going to start waging war on cash much more openly. They'll say it's a tool for terrorists and pimps and every nasty thing, tax cheats, everything you can think of. Then you've got the payment processing systems, and you've also got, we just had the head of the World Health Organization talk about this recently, the digital health certificates, the digital vaccine passports. They're taking what the EU developed during the COVID, which, by the way, the European Commission was promoting vaccine passports in May of 2019, long before anybody ever heard of a COVID or anything like that. So they're taking all of this together, and they are using it to build a control system that will not just be able to surveil and monitor everything you do on an unprecedented scale. When you combine it with AI, the ability to make sense of all this data, it's just mind-blowing, but also to manipulate what you do. And so they're talking about this again pretty openly. If you look at the World Economic Forum meetings, they talk about the benefits of programmable central bank digital currency, where they will be able to say who can buy what, when, under what conditions. And then the Bank for International Settlements, Carol Quigley, to go back to him for a moment, Bill Clinton's mentor, the guy who really exposed this global agenda to create a one world system, he said the apex of the system was going to be the Bank for International Settlements. This is an institution that's almost entirely unknown to Americans. And what they are working on right now, this is not a secret, it's not a conspiracy because it's not happening behind closed doors, is what they call a universal blockchain ledger. They want to tokenize every asset in the known universe, every farm, every car, every house, every tree, put it on this ledger, this blockchain ledger, and then you're only able to interact with this blockchain ledger using your biometric digital ID, using your central bank digital currencies. And so if I want to buy something from you, I can't just hand you a $100 bill. I've got to go on my device, connect to this blockchain system, transfer the central bank digital currencies to you. And so this is a mechanism for controlling humanity that I think is really unprecedented in human history. And when you take it all together, it's very obvious.
And it's going to be very interesting what happens. The EU had set up a digital currency system that was supposed to encompass the entire West. Donald Trump is currently trying to give an alternative stablecoin system. Behind the scenes, there is a war going on for who's going to control the world of the West with their digital currency. That being said, there has already been legislation brought into the United States where if there is a financial collapse, they'll be able to take people's basic bank accounts, switch it over to digital currency accounts, and then they could possibly force people's biometrics upon it in order to access those accounts. So the system and the law there has already kind of been set up. They may need a financial collapse to happen in order to implement the system if people don't adopt it willingly.
And it does sound like it's very far away, or like it sounds crazy, but we're already seeing, and with different excuses. In the UK, they want digital ID to be mandatory to work because they're tackling immigration. In the US, they could also try to implement it through the border. And we have criticized the Trump administration if they even think about doing something like that. Here in Mexico, it's through safety and being able to find people. In Australia, it's to prevent people from or children getting online and seeing things they shouldn't online. So there's always an excuse. That's how they bring it in.
It's the carrot before the stick. They're trying to get you to adopt it willingly. If it doesn't happen willingly, they're going to orchestrate a financial collapse, force everybody into it. It's not far away. It's not even a little far away. It's happening in Vietnam right now. 86 million bank accounts were frozen in order to get access to your money. You had to give your biometrics, and everything is being converted to a digital currency. Also in October, that is just a few days away, the EU is going to start rolling out their digital currency. In order for that digital currency to work, they're going to need a digital ID. Canada has already passed all the legislation for digital ID, digital currency. The United States is moving forward with stablecoin, which is a little bit different form of digital currency. It may offer a little bit more freedom. I do hope if they roll out this stablecoin, they allow people to have dollars as well. If you have options for both, you have maximal freedom.
But we also saw the announcement from Keir Starmer saying a new digital ID will be mandatory to work in the UK. And once again, he's doing it because of immigration and because a lot of people were complaining in the UK that it was completely unmanaged and that especially them, Labour Party hadn't done much, but including the Tories as well. But
you already need an ID in the UK and around the world, most Western countries, in order to work. The people that are working illegally are getting paid cash and they're not giving their ID. It's the employers that break the rules. This does nothing to stem that. So to use this as the excuse, this is a lazy excuse, and you think people are absolute fools. Do not comply with this if you are in the UK.
So digital ID will be mandatory in order to work in the UK as part of plans to tackle illegal migration. Sir Keir Starmer said the new digital ID scheme would make it tougher to work in the UK illegally and offer countless benefits to citizens, while his senior minister, Darren Jones, said it could be the bedrock of the modern state. However, opposition parties argued the proposals would not stop people crossing the channel in small boats. The Prime Minister set out his plans in a broader speech to a gathering of world leaders, in which he said it had been too easy for people to work illegally in the UK because the center-left had been squeamish about saying things like that were clearly true. Addressing the Global Progressive Action Conference in London, of course.
Oh, why don't we go to the clip, actually?
Of who?
Keir Starmer.
We don't have the clip.
Oh, you didn't have the clip?
Well, you didn't add it. We do have Nigel Farage speaking against it.
Okay.
Saying how bad of an idea it is.
Okay, let's get the Nigel Farage clip. It was actually very draconian when Keir Starmer was saying you will not work in the UK if you do not have digital ID. This is complete authoritarianism. There are calls right now coming from Elon Musk and the citizens of the UK for the king to dissolve parliament and hold an election. Reform UK would absolutely blow the doors off an election if it was held today. And it would restore confidence, at least in the crown and the government somewhat. There is complete distrust at this point.
So the Prime Minister says we must have digital ID. That's the way we'll stop illegal immigration. Well, think about it. Germany has ID cards, strict ID and checks. It's made no difference at all in Germany, and nor will it here. All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it hell? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend, and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
And in that particular statement, that is a politician telling the truth. Now, I'm not saying he tells the truth on everything. Overall, I think Nigel Farage is the best of bad choices. But in the here and now, you need to fight digital ID with everything. Otherwise, there are a million other control mechanisms going to be built off the back of that digital ID. Dissolving parliament may be the only way to get Nigel Farage in within the next few years, because Keir Starmer, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere, or if he does go somewhere, he's going to be replaced by a carbon clone of himself.
And RFK Jr. has spoken up about it. From Project Constitution, he exposes the terrifying plan behind digital IDs and CBDCs.
Yeah, and it's very important that we see politicians like RFK, like Nigel Farage, talking so strongly about digital IDs and how they are a bad idea, because if they ever change their view, we're going to be able to point to their own words and say, no, you're lying now.
Mm-hmm.
What we're saying today is
1.5.
But he's okay. Hopefully, we'll be able to understand it. I know his voice is hard to get sometimes.
what I call turnkey totalitarianism. They are putting in place all of these technological mechanisms for control we've never seen before. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian state from the beginning of mankind to control every aspect of behavior, of conduct, of thought, and to obliterate dissent. None of them have been able to do it. They didn't have the technological capacity. Today, the mechanisms are being put in place that will make it so none of us can run and none of us can hide. Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low-orbit satellites. Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day. Digital currency that will allow them to punish us from a distance and cut off our food supply. Every right that you have is transformed into a privilege contingent upon your obedience to arbitrary government dictates.
And Mark Carney had just come out with that exact statement. Freedom is something you have to earn every day. And you need to nail him down on that statement in Canada, because freedom is a God-given right, not something you earn through your government every day.
And it does come with responsibilities, but that's not the same as saying that you earn it.
Yeah.
It will make you a slave. And what do we do about this? What do? We resist. I'm going to tell you 3 rules that you all need to know and memorize. Number 1, every power that government takes from us, it will never relinquish voluntarily. Number 2, every power they take from us, they will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. Number 3, nobody in history of the planet has ever complied their way out of totalitarian control. Every capitulation is a signal to the oppressors to impose new forms of torment or torture or compliance or obedience. Every time you comply, you get weaker. Bullies cannot be appeased. It just encourages them to new forms of torture and torment. Every time you say yes, you're getting pushed back to a weaker position. That's why we need to resist today.
And I'm going to say one more thing. There are a ton of wars on the verge of breaking out. Donald Trump is pressing them off for as long as he can. That being said, a lot of these countries like the EU, if they get this digital ID in and it's contingent on a bank account, on work, if you don't have that digital ID, you don't have rights, and then they force conscript you, it's going to be a 100% conscription rate. There's going to be no way out of it. You're not going to be able to voice your anti-war opinions. If you do, you will be conscripted yourself.
And it's not like we haven't seen this happening already fully almost in another country, which is China. And they've been doing it for so long now that we can actually examine the consequences and what it brings.
They've been doing it for decades now.
A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to 0. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist, Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. He only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Now, we haven't seen a country go to war yet and have digital ID. If they do, who do you think they're going to throw into the front lines? The people that aren't voting for them. So it's a win-win situation, even if they lose the war. It will guarantee compliance and a one-party system in all these countries.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan. start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
You, who is among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms.
And we did see how governments all around the world during the terrible times of 2020 did try to pin people against people. And we do see where that kind of thinking leads. Oh, that citizen is bad. So it's good that they're being, shunned and that they're being controlled by their own social credit score.
Yeah, and with the social credit score, it actually encourages people to rat on their neighbors. Is your neighbor not complying? Is your neighbor not being a good citizen? Oh, is your neighbor is he using too much carbon? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? Oh, does he have a dog? Does he have an extra dog that's not reported to us? Report him and we'll give you bonus points, which will equal digital currency.
And you did have one more clip about a lady.
It's along the same line, so we can go right into it, actually.
And I've also sped it up a little bit because... just to make it faster.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and I want to do a quick update about a document that got passed by the United Nations this weekend called the Pact of the Future document. It's two parts, one on science and technology and one about the youth and future generations. It is quite egregious, and it was done by a procedure called the silence procedure, which makes it a pact. And if no one objected, it is automatically adopted and put into the record as being completely adopted. This is the World Health Organization's runaround, or end around. Since they were not able to get the World Health Organization treaty passed, they decided to take it to the General Assembly. And it is even more egregious than what the World Health Organization was wanting to get passed.
Yeah, and we talked about the World Health Organization trying to get that in and how people needed to stand up against it. And people did stand up in unison, and Donald Trump backed their play. That's how countries were able to protect their own sovereignty and not give it away to an unelected organization like the WHO. But now they went to the UN and made the bill even more draconian. This is exactly the same as what happened with Canadian censorship bills with Bill C-63. It was here, and then it got knocked down, so they decided to turn it into two bills and make it 10 times more draconian. It's the same idea. If they can't get it passed one time, they've lost time, so they're just going to make it more draconian in order to make up for lost time.
Just read you something really quickly about what is inside of this pact that is now being accepted by 193 nations around the world and equally open-armed accepted by our current administration. Everyone, it says that this is the power structure, fully digital and maximized for the control of the masses. Everyone will be expected to have a biometric digital ID that marks them not just as citizens of an individual country, but as a global citizen. So anytime you hear global citizen or anytime you hear sustainability, think that this is an egregious thing that's happening at the level of the World Health Organization and the United Nations.
And they're wanting to make global citizens because they also have amendments that they want to tax every single citizen of the globe. The only way to do that is going to be through a digital ID.
That has a dissonant opinion will be labeled as misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation and memory hold. Perpetrators for unapproved information will be fact-checked and punished by the system, which will be operated and enforced by artificial intelligence. Punishments will include being locked out of one's bank account, being unable to make certain purchases, unable to get on an airplane, on a subway, drive on public roads. This is the future, according to the world's self-appointed overlords at the United Nations. These are unelected bureaucrats that are making decisions about our country, our sovereignty around the world. Nothing could be more important at this point in time than to get prepared, have water, food, digital access, flashlights, a way to communicate with family and friends. Now is really the time to get involved and get prepared because this is what's coming. Our Congress is sitting on its hands. There was a press conference on the 17th about this and no further action has been taken. So it's up to us to mobilize and to go forward, particularly with your local sheriffs, to get your constitutional sheriffs to say, this isn't going to be allowed in my county. Thank you very much. Take action. We've been talking about the onset of one world order, one world government, one world religion, one world money for a long time.
Okay,
it's no longer coming.
Good. And I do want to say this, and although I do like Trump bringing law and order back by bringing in the military, I don't like the idea of the military. You already have a police force. The problem is these police forces don't want to do their jobs. You can't have federal control over states. You want to have states have maximum control over themselves. If they're failed states, hopefully the citizens would leave that state and vote with their feet. I don't like to see the federal military being brought in on the citizens of a country itself. And it's kind of the same thing I was saying about protecting Jimmy Kimmel's right to speak. Even though I disagree with what he's saying, we need to protect it. Otherwise, they're going to come after our right to speak. We're going to strip our own freedoms from us by stripping our enemies' freedoms from them.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into, why don't you introduce the last article here?
I don't know much about the last article.
Oh, you just read the first headline there.
I'm bad at this.
Go ahead.
So we do keep hearing a lot of the pro-Palestine crowd keep saying that, oh, it's a genocide, it's horrible, it's terrible. But at the same time, they don't point to other situations where a lot of people are faring even worse than over there, but they simply just keep quiet.
So basically, in Nigeria, they have killed 500,000 Christians, and there is a Christian genocide going on in Nigeria as we speak. Let's get into it.
So from it, and again, take it from where it comes from. Last year alone, Muslims ended 500,000 Christians in only Nigeria. Why are they talking only about Palestine? And we see here someone speaking about that.
Love the world and you want to see a better world. Your interest is not just free Palestine. I mean, there are more people dying in Nigeria than are dying in Palestine. I can tell you that last year alone, over 500,000 Christians were killed in Nigeria just in 1 year. And nobody's protesting. The activists are not saying anything. For me, that's hypocrisy. In the north of Nigeria, Christians are being killed daily because the Islamic militants don't want Christians to exist in the north of Nigeria. They want to see a world where there are no Christians at all. And they want to conquer not just Nigeria, they want to conquer Africa, they want to conquer Europe, and they want to conquer America. The younger generation who want to live in a better world must speak out today. And I'm calling on all advocates of a free world to.
Okay, and that being said, there is a war on Christianity, not in just Nigeria, but all around the world. It's happening in Canada, where we used to be from. Over 200 churches were burnt to the ground. If they're not government approved Christian churches, which means rainbow flags, and they're in alignment with the government and what they want, they get their nonprofit status taken away from them. This genocide is going on all around the world against Christians. It's just much more violent in Nigeria right now. We got a few more articles going into people talking about this, including Bill Maher.
For me, it's more about the selective outrage that we see. We see all these giant protests, and I continue to say I will not get involved into that conflict, the Israel-Palestine. I just think both sides, let them fight it out, stop funding both sides and see what happens. But in my opinion, it is the selective outrage from the left that only points at one culprit, only points at one situation, while there's the same or even worse horrible things happening, and they never seem to mention or protest that.
Yeah, and it's very interesting how a lot of these countries like Canada, the EU, have religious protections, but it's religious protections for every other religion other than Christianity. If it's Muslim, if you say something against a Muslim, it's hate speech. If against another religion, it's hate speech. Against Christians, it's just accepted.
Mm-hmm. And we do see here Christians in Nigeria refuse to renounce the faith after Islamists burned their church down.
And you can go at 1.5 speed.
Well, I think it's just them praying. But
And pause it for a moment. And you have to realize their church was completely burnt to the ground. Just the walls are standing, yet they're still coming there to pray.
We praise your name to protect us, to guide us, Lord, to see through.
And that is part of the issue with Islam and other religions, especially the more radical sects. It's acceptable to do things like this to other religious groups.
And the problem is also with the whole oppressor-oppressed dynamic that comes through from Marxism all the way through the Frankfurt School, and now we see it every day on the specifically left is that they focus a lot on the oppressed, and they seem to forget a lot that a lot of the oppressed and the third world, as they would call it, is very religious towards Christianity. And there are a lot of Christians around the world that they would consider oppressed as well, but because they connect Christianity with bad things that they have been taught at their Ivy Hall universities and the hallways of knowledge, then they don't want to consider that. But in Canada as well, a lot of those churches that were burned down by, I will say, Antifa extremists, or at least people on the left that were trying to, liberate and do a change for the people, they didn't realize that a lot of those churches were for First Nations communities and peoples, and they just burned them down because they were trying to help them.
They don't want that. And you have to realize what's the underpinning of this entire thing. If somebody is a Christian, they put God above everything else, not the government. If you can get rid of religion, then the highest ranking person that is going to be able to have control over you is going to be the government. The government is going to be able to tell you your morals and everything else, and it becomes extremely hard to resist. You see what happens when Christians stand up. They're willing to come back in threat of their life to a burned down church and pray. I commend those people, and you cannot let the government get rid of religion. Now, I might not want to see religion join with the government, but religion has a place to put guardrails on government policies.
And we continue to say, and I continue to say, for example, I'm not religious, but I do defend that religion has built up societies. It is essential, and we're seeing what happens when you lose that, particularly in the States, Canada, the UK, etc. And we also see the attacks on it, a very specific one on Christianity from all sides of the world.
Well, also the government does not like Christianity because it has a non-moving base of a moral foundation, meaning liberals and even conservatives will typically change the moral stance based on the situation. One day they'll be anti-war, the next day they're pro-war, the one day they're this, the next day they're that. So they have no non-moving moral foundation. With Christianity at the base, you have that. Islam is a little bit too radical for me, and that's why I don't agree with it. I think it's a violent religion at its heart.
Let's see what Bill Maher said about it and about these kids protesting all about Palestine and forgetting about other parts of the world.
Nigeria, I mean, the fact that this issue has not gotten on people's radar,
Right, no one's talking about it.
it's pretty amazing. If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. And again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
Thank you. No one will talk about it, so thank you.
Absolutely. Nigeria, I mean...
And this is coming from a liberal who's non-religious. And like I say, I'm not religious either, but I prefer a Christian moral value set to underpin society. And I think there are a lot of people like me that might not be religious, but understand now that they're trying to take religion from society, that governments are completely disconnecting with their populations. A way to put guardrails on government is a religious moral foundation, especially a Christian one.
And myself have spoken out against doing a theocratic kind of version of the government. But again, it is those in the citizenry and with the people it is important to have those non-moving moral foundations and moral values, because what happens otherwise? Well, we're seeing it right now. And we can kind of imagine where that leads to, because we're seeing it also being enacted.
Well, and our prayers go out to everybody in Nigeria. Okay, I'm going to stop the recordings there.
Hold on. We do want to talk about a movie that we did hear a lot about this weekend, because we had some friends that went to go see it, but we refused to pay for it. So we're going to wait until it comes either out on streaming or until we can find it somewhere else. But there have been a lot of people talking about it, and it is the One Battle After Another movie. And I know you were particularly interested in going to watch it.
Yeah, now I'm a little bit interested just because the reviews are coming out. I think it's being politically banned by the right. Even moderates are saying this is way too political.
It's not being banned. They're complaining about it.
No, they're banning it. I'm literally watching conservatives say, no, I refuse to watch this movie.
No, I know, but I mean, there's no mechanism that's being used to censor the movie, which is what we were just talking about. The people are just saying, go boycott it.
Sorry, it's a boycott. It's being boycotted. It's being boycotted by conservatives. Even moderates are saying it is a liberal's wet dream of propaganda. I don't know if it is or it isn't. I had some liberal friends that went to watch the movie. They loved it. Then again, that is coming from a liberal. I will watch this when it comes out on streaming. I'm not willing to support the movie because what I think is in it, if it's not in it when it comes into streaming, I will say that I'm wrong. But yeah.
So from the BBC, one battle after another review, and this came out this weekend. Leonardo DiCaprio stars in Dazzler of a comedy action drama. And I have heard the opinion that, oh, you're all exaggerating, it's just a comedy, it goes against everybody. But it does lean into, if it actually does what I've heard a lot of reviewers say, if it does that, then it means it's both sidesing the thing. And I mean, we have seen over the past 10, 15 years, it is not a both sides issue.
Well,
and the way it paints the one side is very different to the way it paints
why
the
don't
other
we
side.
go a little bit into it? It glorifies political violence, specifically from the left.
From what we've heard.
I'm not for glorification of political violence, number one. But number two, we're living in an era, especially what happened with Charlie Kirk, to support a movie like this. I'm just not for it right now. Now, I could be wrong because I haven't seen the movie. I will watch it when it comes on streaming because it is causing so much controversy. I will not pay to see this movie.
And I mean, we do know that there's very good cinematography. There's great actors in it. Great. I don't agree with their political opinions, but I mean, we do know they're great actors.
Well, they've tried propaganda pieces like this in the past, but not to this extreme. This is this is hundreds of millions of dollars they've invested in this movie. The best writers, the best directors, the best actors from multi-generations. So they have everything that they need to really get people to buy in to this movie, especially when movies in this day and age just aren't that good. So if this is a halfway decent movie, it could appeal to the younger generation and possibly put violence in a good light, especially political violence, which I am against.
And I think, I mean, the release date was probably already set, but they could have, I mean, pushed it back a little bit, especially because of what we continue to see in the United States and in other parts of the world or the modern world.
Well, and before...
Well, but I was going to say we did see, for example, Apple TV Plus try to cancel or move The Savant, which was also like, I mean, awful's wet dream, so an affluent white liberal woman's wet dream, where it's a woman hunting down, you know, the extreme right and the horrible people on that side. And after what happened to Charlie Kirk, they did decide to pull it from Apple TV Plus. I don't know if the discussions were there for this movie or if they just saw it as, oh, it's a comedy, everybody will enjoy it. But
well, I think
it might not be the best time to release it, and we do have to wait until the next box office numbers come out for next weekend, because right now most people didn't know that much about it. The reviews hadn't come in, so we did see, like, you know, increased box office numbers. But what happens next weekend?
We did not see increased box office numbers. I know. I had a chance to relook at the numbers. So it made $22 million in the U.S. with zero competition. Nothing came out this week, and it made $50 million worldwide. If it can keep those numbers week after week, it's a success. The problem was it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and it didn't present itself for what it was, is possibly liberal propaganda. It's got a lot of bad reviews coming out on it now, so I think it's going to have a huge drop off next week. If it doesn't have that drop off, then it has a chance to be successful. Being successful would mean making its money back. I don't think it's going to do that. I am expecting a huge drop off from this movie. I was confused by how much this movie was making because I was looking at the domestic box office rather than the global.
But let's see at what at least the, let's call it, traditional mainstream news is saying about it. So the virtuosic, politically charged triumph is horrifying yet ridiculously funny. It's rare to see such an ambitious film work so smoothly. Paul Thomas Anderson, who is the director, is the brilliant mind, and Leonardo DiCaprio, the emotional heart of this timely, which is interesting.
He also made Boogie Nights as well.
Audacious comic action drama, one battle after another. As Bob, a former radical, now content to drink and smoke all day long, DiCaprio races around in a plaid bathrobe and a beanie trying to rescue his abducted teenage daughter. It's a funny turn, but the love and fear in his eyes will tell you how deeply Bob feels. That is just one element of the film, which is also full of car chases, militias, shadowy organizations, loyalties, and betrayals, all fused in a story that pulls you along from the start to finish and that is jolting in its political immediacy. It's rare to see such an ambitious film work so smoothly, but then one of Anderson's signatures is his ability to coolly control raucous, sprawling stories.
Okay, and this was based upon a book, and it was a script 10 years in the making. So it may just be too true to life right now on what's going on, where people think it was written for this day and age, or it may just be a cover saying, I've been writing this thing for 10 years, not wanting to admit that it is very politically intentioned. Again, I haven't seen the movie. I am watching it when it comes on streaming. I do not want to monetarily support it in theaters.
And it's also coming at a point where for the past 10 to 15 years, there has been very clear hate against one side, to call it that way, or at least vilifying of one side by the other, which is the right by the left. So if this was in the works for 10, 15 years, for like the past 10 years, then it makes sense that maybe that was at the forefront. But now we have seen the effects of all of this, and we have seen the effect of that rhetoric be championed over and over again by the Democrats on the left, and the consequences that we have seen now with Charlie Kirk and with a bunch of other things and shootings that have happened since.
I also think it was an extremely high budgeted movie. It was around $150 million to make, a $70 million marketing budget. So that's $220 million. The culture, there is a dramatic shift happening. If they didn't get this thing out the door now, they may have never been able to release it. And if that happened to a $200 million film, it could severely hurt a company. It looks like it will make at least $100 million back. So if it can make half of its budget back, at least they recoup something rather than not release it at all.
But going back to speak about the Middle East, today breaking, President Trump just listed up the countries in the Middle East that have agreed to Trump's principles for peace: Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, Pakistan, Egypt. All that Hamas needs to do now is accept the principles for peace. And I don't see that happening.
Well, I don't know if Hamas will or won't. That's a lot of pressure coming from the Middle East, but it doesn't look like Israel will, because I've seen Netanyahu's comments based upon this. Trump said, should we take any questions? I'll take one question, but he asked Netanyahu first, and Netanyahu said, no, we shouldn't. So he also said, we need to get this deal done before we take questions, implying that I don't think Israel's very hyped on it. I think the Middle East and possibly Hamas will go along with this thing.
And I want to just say that my meetings and dialogue that we had with so many countries, Saudi Arabia as an example, the king is a phenomenal person. The Emir of Qatar, he's an incredible people. UAE, that's MBZ.
It's a...
and ABZ, we're totally involved. These are the people that we've been dealing with and have been actually very much involved in this negotiation, giving us ideas, things they can live with, things they can't live with. Pretty complex. I mean, after 2,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is, I guess it's got to be a little complex. It would have been done a long time ago. The King of Jordan was with us, as you know, in the United Nations. The President of Turkey, President Erdogan, is a friend of mine, a strong man, but a good man. President of Indonesia, somebody who's an amazing leader. Prabowo, he is an amazing leader and respected by everybody. He was in the room with us. We were together with most of these people that I'm mentioning. Others were by phone or the next day. The Prime Minister and the Field Marshal of Pakistan, they were with us right from the beginning. Incredible. In fact, they just put out a statement that they fully believe in this pact. It just came out just as I was walking around. They said, sir, you have a big notice from the Prime Minister of Pakistan and from the Field Marshal that they back this 100%. President El-Sisi of Egypt was terrific. And these are people I've gotten to know over the years. I mean, I would say it started around 2015 and then went into 2016 when the presidency officially began. But I've known them actually for a long time. And they're in many cases really great men. I can't say in all cases, but I will tell you in many cases, they're great men and some great women too. They tend to be mostly men, however, I will say that.
Okay, go back up to the list of countries there, please.
Oh.
Okay, so we have Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Egypt. The one country that is familiarly not on the list is Iran. So if they can get a peace with Hamas, is there a potential game plan to go after Iran? Israel is currently in 7 wars with 4 countries and 3 individual groups. So I'm wondering what Israel's bigger play is. Donald Trump has been able to negotiate 7 Middle East peace accords in his last term. So he has good relations with these people so far. It was very suspicious that Iran wasn't on the list. I would expect further escalation possibly with Iran if they're able to get peace here.
And you do, hold on. And you do know more about this than I do, but do you actually think that Hamas would be willing to say this more than Israel would?
Definitely. Hamas wants a way out right now. They've been trying to negotiate this. Israel does not want an end. That's why they are engaged in 7 wars at this point. It's not the fact that I don't like Israel or anything like that, but Netanyahu specifically as their leader seems to be a bit of a warmonger. I would like to see just a leadership shift in Israel, and I think it would win a lot of support back to Israel at its base. Israel's never been more unpopular from both the left and the right, and I think it has more to do with Netanyahu than the actual country itself.
I mean, there is a lot of Israel doing.
Well, I have liberal friends that that absolutely hate Netanyahu as well. Netanyahu is just starting war after war after war. How are you engaged in 7 wars at once? You're a small country with a very small population overall to be engaged in 7 wars.
And we might also be seeing an internal war brewing in the UK, specifically because of every stupid decision that has been made in the past 2 weeks. But from British intel breaking, Britain's call on Charles to dissolve Parliament. The King, also in Canada, is one of the few people that is able to dissolve Parliament almost by themselves. Public demand a general election now. Truss and Starmer and Labour are at rock bottom. Britain cannot survive 4 more years of this decline.
Yeah, and this was very interesting when I started investigating this afternoon. Supposedly, Keir Starmer says, oh God, what do you call the royal family?
The royal family?
No. Oh, the monarchy? Yeah, the monarch is here to support Parliament. The Parliament is not here to support the monarchy. And Donald Trump has recently had meetings with the monarchy, and Elon Musk a few years ago called for the dissolvement of Parliament, and now we're having a huge press from the UK citizenry itself that is coming back up for a push for the King to dissolve Parliament. That being said, so far the Parliament and the monarchy have been in lockstep. So maybe the King would be thinking he needs to realign himself with the citizenry because right now they are completely disengaged. They are on a razor's edge of a revolution over there. So maybe the monarchy would have the smart move of having an election. If they did have an election, it would be Reform UK put in without a doubt. They are so far ahead in the polls, it's ridiculous. That being said, the monarchy had a meeting with Donald Trump privately, and they have also had a private meeting with Reform UK and Nigel Farage. So all the chips are kind of lining up to kind of take Keir Starmer out, possibly.
Yes, sorry. There we go. Trying to figure out where to go next.
Or you go to the article that we had.
That was from way before. So.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to talk about it.
Then hold on.
Let me just go to the 3-shot.
So from January 3rd, so this was all the way back then, Elon Musk urges King Charles to dissolve Parliament. What can the UK monarch actually do?
So this idea has been around for quite some time, but the UK people are really picking up on it. It's one thing when Elon Musk calls for it, but I think this is where the idea originally kind of came from.
So Elon Musk has backed a suggestion that King Charles III of the United Kingdom exercise his powers and dissolve Parliament, which would usher in a new general election and a new Parliament. But critics wasted no time in lambasting the suggestion.
Well, right now you have Starmer completely aligned with the EU, trying to join back into the EU, and you have Donald Trump trying to save the UK and align them with America. This is an opportunity for the monarch to realign himself with Donald Trump. What's really going on behind the scenes is the UK is going to have to pick what digital currency system they want to kind of be in. The EU is coming in October with a EU programmable digital currency. The United States is proposing a stable coin that would possibly offer more freedom to the people, but they would have to realign their value set with Donald Trump and go away from the globalists.
So do you want me to go to the part where they say...
that was... Oh, yeah, you can go into it.
I want to explain to people why he has the power to do so, but I'm trying to find it. Here we go. Can the king dissolve parliament? Many were quick to point out that the monarchy's ability to dissolve parliament may have been fully checked by the 2011 Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which restricted the conditions on an election to the normal 5-year cycle or to additional conditions. An election can only occur outside the normal cycle if 2/3 of the House of Commons vote in favor of an election, or if the government lost a no confidence vote and no alternative government was confirmed by the Commons within 14 days. However, the bill's language caused much confusion and gridlock in 2019, leading Parliament to pursue an additional measure which repealed the 2011 Act and instituted the Dissolution and Calling of Parliament Bill, which Queen Elizabeth II assented to in March 2022. Under that new act, the sovereign regained the ability to grant a dissolution of parliament on request of the sitting prime minister. Whether the sovereign can do so on their own is untested, but based on the text of the new law, unlikely. The play Charles III, first staged 2014, examined the issue and portrayed a possible future King Charles monarchy in which Charles exercises his power to dissolve parliament. It's happened like historically a very, very long time ago in England, but
well, and I also think a lot of this is going to have to do with digital ID, digital currency. If the UK people themselves are able to resist this digital ID, then it's going to put up another barrier in order for them to adopt the European digital currency, because everybody's going to need a digital ID under that system. Possibly, UK is in a lot of trouble. Donald Trump does look favorably onto them, but he has an entire new system coming. This is an opportunity for them to realign themselves. That being said, they would have to be subservient to the United States and not the other way around, which it has typically been. A lot of people don't understand that the UK banking system had a lot of control mechanisms over the US for a long time. This would completely reverse that relationship, but it would put them in a better position than going with a failed EU system, I believe.
And Rafa says, hello, Rafa.
Oh, good to see you.
And he also says, you're just 13 away from 500. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Today's Monday, so I'm a little bit off.
One day, and we are actually moving studios right now. So for the next couple of weeks, we're just going to be doing lives Monday through Friday, and then we'll be getting back into edited videos soon. Once in a while, we may release a video if we have time.
Yeah, but especially because we do have to settle everything, and it is pretty far away from where we are right now. So just going and coming, it takes a while.
Yeah, and you'll see the studio slowly get disassembled here as we reassemble at the new place.
Yes. But speaking of disassembling and reassembling, we did see over the weekend Trump deploying troops to Portland, or like the idea that they should do that, and also what Antifa has tried to do within not just Portland, but also in Illinois and other parts of the country where they're trying to go after ICE, as we've seen.
Yeah, he's in a real situation here having to deploy the military, but if he lets these groups absolutely fester, it's not going to turn out well. We've seen what happened with the BLM riots. So although I am against bringing the military into individual states and imposing federal military or law enforcement, I do understand it. I do not want to see it become a permanent thing.
And we have seen the mayors and the people in these cities and in these states saying, oh, nothing's going on. But if you just open X and see any independent reporter, be it Nick Shirley, be it Katie Daviscourt and Post Millennial, all of the people that are on the ground and have been on the ground for even years, like Andy No, go follow him as well. It's just clear that it's an unhandleable, they can't handle the situation anymore. And they want to pretend like nothing's happening. I did see one of the officials, just X a photo of a park that looked very calm, but that is not what it looks like. And I know that as well because it's very similar to Vancouver, although in Vancouver they don't have as many weapons. They still have tried to do the same sorts of things, and especially with ICE and with everything that they're trying to go against now ramping up as well. Well, there's been an increased attack on ICE facilities, and it does seem clear that the police and the ICE people themselves are not able to handle everything that's being thrown at them, literally and figuratively, from Antifa and all of these insane groups.
Yeah, if there hadn't been the previous incident with BLM and the $16 billion in damage, and it was capped out at $16 billion because insurance companies would have bankrupted themselves if it had gone higher than that. So they capped the damage out at $16 billion. Hundreds of people died. It was extremely violent. It spread across the United States. It makes this kind of understandable. But if that hadn't happened, I would say I'm completely against bringing federal law enforcement, because if it was the opposite way around and it was Biden bringing in federal law enforcement potentially to arrest people or implement vaccines or vaccine passports, I would be completely against it. I want to maximize freedom for the states, but in this particular case, I'm willing to look past it if it's implemented on a short-term basis.
But in this case,
because of what happened.
But in this case, they're not able to handle it themselves, and it's been made clear that they've just let this go on for way too long.
They don't want to handle it themselves.
Yes. And now, because a lot of them are aligned, or at least paying for some stuff for Antifa, but I forgot what I was going to say.
But also you have to realize here, like, I do really believe in Trump's economical plan. I think it's going very well. But if it does collapse for some reason, or the global economy does collapse, and then there's chaos in all these cities, and people are like literally starving for food or something like this, they already have the justification to bring in military now.
But these people do need some sort of consequences. And the problem is, again, the police department, the local government won't do anything about it. This is just something that was filmed over the weekend as they were fighting. It looks
like a war zone.
It looks like a war zone.
But small skirmishes like this is better than the entire nation rioting, which we've seen with the BLM riots.
Mm-hmm. And as we see there, the problem is a lot of these people have never faced consequences for what they're doing. They have been led to believe that they can continue to do this and that it's completely fine and that is just peaceful protesting when they're actually throwing explosives and things at ICE facilities and ICE buildings and ICE officers themselves. And finally, they're getting some sort of consequences. And they're so irate because that has never happened to them that they're now complaining and claiming that, oh, their rights are being trampled upon. But we see there, the officer is saying, move back, move back, move back. Then if they don't, or if they try to harass or go like touch an officer, which if you're a logical person, you know you shouldn't do, then the consequences start. And that's when they start getting arrested. But they're saying all these arrests are not justified, etc. It's all on video of them attacking the officers first.
Yeah, but they're kind of building up towards this. It's much harder to get into the United States now. You have to pay a larger fee for background checks. The southern border is closed. The northern border is getting more locked down. They know who's coming in. So there can really only be 2,000 to 3,000 of these really, really radicalized people, and they go around the country causing this. And they're not. And if they arrest those people, you're going to see a quelling because the mid-level and the less radical people aren't going to necessarily be the ones organizing everything. So if they can get really a good investigation going and arrest the few thousand radicals,
I don't know.
What do you mean?
Because we do see in universities, there's still encouragement for people to continue to join, attack, go against, etc.
When you investigate groups like this, you have to understand there's extreme radicals.
Put out the finances as well.
It's just like in a city, in Vancouver, when the crime rate went way up, it was actually only 100. They monitored it. It was 100 people that made the crime rate go way up.
Yes, but now with...
because they committed crime.
I'm going to sound like an older lady, but with the online communications being as they are and everybody being able to darse cuerda, I don't know how to say that in English, but like amp everybody up through like calls for violence within social media, within, oh, let's go here, and organizing through Discord and other places that are now also being investigated. I don't think it's going to be quelled.
And things,
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
It's going to get a little worse, but I don't think it's going to get that bad, especially if he quells it now. He can't wait and let it fester is what I'm saying.
No. He does have to.
And it's going to be and a lot of these radicals, you have to realize when I was investigating a lot of this stuff, they go international. They come, they rile shit up, and then they leave, and then they come back. This happened with the Vancouver riots as well. Mm-hmm. So there are international groups that are really, a lot of NGO money goes into this stuff, but because they're doing a lot more security checks in every way, shape, or form, they're really addressing the issue in a very systematic way. They also have AI and a lot of other systems.
And Rafa says, I'm still waiting for the Epstein files, though. Aren't we all?
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in that, and he's doing a lot of good things other than that, but that is the one thing I am extremely disappointed in.
Well, and especially now there's been a ramping up of this other stuff that's a bit more prescient and a bit more important that I think he's been able to cover and hide, or at least Pam Bondi has been able to cover and hide through what happened to Charlie Kirk and everything else that's happening.
Yeah, I'm also not going to ever justify it or let him off the hook on that, but he is doing a lot of good things other than that. But that particular case, and I was also, when he supported the jibby jab a lot, I was against him on that. I'm not going to agree with every politician on everything. But
and nobody should, I think. No. Like, you have to have discernment and critical thought, and it's okay to not agree with every single podcaster you see or every single political commentator or pundit. And it is important to build up
But
what you actually believe and think.
What are the other options other than Trump? I mean, there is no other option here. We're going back to Biden or a Democrat. This is Trump's last term.
AOC.
This is Trump's last term. So, I mean, we're looking at J.D. Vance, who is much better spoken, presents himself very well, and is a good debater. So I look forward to J.D. coming next, possibly.
And Rafa says, how many subs are required in order for Super Chats to be activated? I think it's 500, but then for
500.
full monetization, it's 1,000. So we're still getting at milestones, but we're getting there. If you haven't subscribed, please do so on YouTube. It would really help us out. If you're watching us on X or RUMBLE, it also helps if you follow us or subscribe.
When
to
we
us as
move
well.
to the new studio, we're going to go a lot harder. So
That sounds bad. We're going to ramp up production.
Yeah.
But
so we should get to 1,000 in the new studio, hopefully by the new year.
From the AP, Trump says he will send troops to Portland, Oregon in latest deployment to U.S. cities. And that is, I believe, the mayor who is insufferable. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek.
And this is the thing, and I will admit, conservative states also have violence and unruliness, but it's not oriented in an organized political fashion. And that's the issue we're having here, and that's why he needs to go into these Democratic strongholds like Chicago and like Portland. He needs to quell the political violence before it gets.
But also
very large.
because through legislation, these idiots that are in power have allowed for the cities and the conditions that people live under to get worse and worse and worse by passing a lot of like very progressive legislation, by passing a lot of things that just allow crime to happen and then even couch it or try to hide it or try to excuse it through mental health issues or, addiction issues. That doesn't help the people. And it also continues to fester the way these cities are managed. How do I know that? Because Vancouver is the exact same way. And I lived there for 13 years.
Let's go into the next story just because we have a lot of stories today.
Well, we don't have to get to them all.
Oh, we'll try.
Okay. Hold on. From DC Drano, Portland is like a third world country. Agree. Watches Antifa militant hits a federal cop in the face with a board. He immediately regrets it, and now he can enjoy federal prison. And this is the thing. They're not used to consequences, so they act like they're being, this is the worst. It's all fascism, and they're horrible. This is what would happen in any other country if you did this to an officer that's trying to tell you to stand down.
These protests are fairly small at this point, so they're going to be able to arrest a lot of people and a lot of the troublemakers. Once they have those people in the system, it's going to be a lot harder for those people to go unchecked. It's very hard to make these arrests in a massive protest like a BLM riots and things like that happened. So this is a very controlled situation, and it's the best situation Trump could possibly be in right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was pretty low. And that's the thing. They go like, it's like they don't know how to behave in a civilized society. They were never taught or trained as to how to anything. I can't even talk. They annoy me.
Oh yeah.
Because then they complain, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're being horrible people, they're all fascists. And it's like, no, this is how actual law enforcement works when it's applied. But because your state, county, whatever hasn't been doing it for the past 10 years, you'd have no idea how to. Because these are all young people too.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing.
Let's go into the next story.
And Rafa says, I want to be your first super chat. That would be very cute. Thank you. We'll let you know, I guess. Which story do you want to go next to? Because you seem tired.
Yeah, because even after we hit 500 subscribers, we have to wait for approval for
Super it takes
chats.
approval, and then to further monetize, that also takes a while.
Let's go into the Trump political violence.
The Trump political violence?
Yeah. The thing that happened in Michigan. We have multiple stories on it.
Well, it's not Trump political violence, but
it's a Trump supporter.
From all we know. Breaking White House.
When a Trump supporter creates political violence like it was in this case and the other case that we have.
I know, but what I'm saying is they haven't fully come out with the investigation and said anything. So right now it's all speculation, but from what people have found on his social media and etc., it looks like that, but until an official source doesn't come out to say it, I will say it's
he had a Trump sign in his yard. He's wearing a Trump shirt. He's obviously a outwardly Trump supporter. That being said, I don't endorse political violence. He's already dead, so there's no reason to kind of denounce it any further. Hopefully nobody does things like this again. There was another conservative that had political violence this weekend as well. So political violence is amping up on both sides now, but it's not, not political violence.
No, violence, not political violence.
Let me finish. You know, you can keep going.
Well, that is the main distinction we do have to do. This was violence, and it was, again, from what we've heard, from what we've seen, from what independent people have investigated, it does seem like he had some sort of connection to that Mormon church, and like he was going against Mormons specifically, asking people if they believed in Jesus Christ or what's his name?
It didn't seem like it was.
What's the name of the
It didn't
Mormon
seem
guy?
like it was politically oriented. It seemed like it was a vengeance. He did this mass attack out of vengeance, not political vengeance. And it seemed like that was the same case with the other conservative that was involved in it.
We
and
again,
you
don't know if they're conservative or not.
And yes, we do. And we don't have
Officially.
You jumped really quick.
I'm saying we don't officially
Can I
know.
ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do you jump so quickly when it's a suspected leftist? And you
I
say,
don't jump so
you
quickly.
Did.
I waited for
the
the
last 3
information.
times you did.
I waited for the information to come out. As soon as they came out with the press conference, it said the mother said he turned to leftism.
It's a conservative government, so of course they're releasing information when it's a conservative.
But with this, I'm saying
you just seem unbalanced here.
No, with this, I'm saying I would wait until they've officially come out and said it. Right now, they actually found 3 different Facebook profiles, and people were saying all sorts of things online. So I'm saying wait until they come out with the motive and what the actual motive
what happened
was.
when Biden was saying it's a conservative, it's a conservative, it's conservative, and you said no, because the same thing was happening.
When was Biden?
The same thing was happening with the Trump or the Biden administration, not only with January 6th, but like 6 other acts of violence. And every time they would come out with it, you would say, "Oh no, it's not true. We can't."
No, it was proven that it wasn't true by people investigating. I'm
no,
saying there
not
has to
all
be
of it
more.
wasn't.
Yes, it was.
It's like when one side does it, you're not willing to admit it, but when another
I'm
side does,
saying I
you are.
disavow this. I'm saying this is clear violence, and it's clearly religiously or some sort of involvement motivated. He used to date a Mormon girl from what we know. I'm saying we don't fully know this, so don't take it as absolute truth.
Well, I've investigated it pretty in depth.
Yes,
Today, I spent 2 hours investigating this.
through X and through other people
Not
that found
just
his
X.
Facebook profile. What I'm saying is wait until the investigators come out until you form an actual
so
opinion.
why are the investigators not coming out 3 days when it's obvious from my investigation, but when it was literally
then ask them.
It was literally when it was a leftist political violence, it was within an hour the FBI was saying it's a leftist.
It wasn't within an hour. The actual press conference
They
took 2
released
days.
pictures and other things.
It took 2 days for
No,
them
it
to actually
didn't.
come to that
It was
conclusion.
within hours.
They didn't catch him until 36
Okay.
hours later for Tyler Robinson with Charlie Kirk. What I'm saying is in both of these cases, it is violence, it is horrible, it is abhorrent, and yes, of course, right-wing people can do the same or worse levels of violence. What I'm saying is wait until, don't just base your knowledge through
I'm not.
X.
I've done far more investigation on this particular case than I did the other leftist case.
I know, but what was your investigation?
And I was willing to call it a leftist act of violence.
What was your
Hold on,
investigation?
when it was the ICE shooter. I probably watched 4 hours of video now on this thing. I've gone into...
With the ICE shooter, I said, as soon as the bullets came out, I said, well, they said anti-ICE. How much more clear can you be?
With this, he had a Trump sign in his
I
yard.
know. I'm not saying
he wore a Trump...
Hold on. I'm not saying he wasn't... He was clearly on the right and maybe clearly conservative. If the information that people... If the information people have found is correct, that's what I'm saying. We need the investigators to come out and say what the motive was, which we don't know yet.
You don't need an investigator to come out every time, because when the Biden investigators came out, you weren't willing to accept that information.
When? What case? Tell me the case.
The January 6th case, there was tons of cases.
With the January 6th, there were 276 FBI informants embedded within the
I'm
crowd.
aware. I'm a conservative myself.
Okay.
I'm aware of this.
So
but
what are
you are
you
extremely
saying?
biased when it's one side and not another.
What I'm saying, I'm not being biased about that. I'm being biased about your sources of investigation because there hasn't been an official come out and say, yes, this,
And there's not going to be
etc.
because the current FBI doesn't come out when it's right-wing violence. It's obvious at this point.
And I'm saying they should. I'm not saying he wasn't a Trump supporter.
They don't. So
I disavow it completely. What I'm saying is
they're trying to write a narrative.
What I'm saying is today on X, we saw a lot of people posting things like, oh, he had donated to Act Blue, which is the Democratic donation thing. then it came out that there was a guy with the same name who was doing those donations, who did work for Blue Origin, etc. So there's a lot of confusion right now.
There's not confusion. It's basically
You don't understand what I'm saying.
Other than you.
You don't understand what I'm saying.
Other than you, it's
I'm
not.
saying
it's a
you're
consensus.
basing your sources on things that are not actual sources.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
I'm not going into a yes, you are. No, I'm not.
Okay,
whoever was left watching left. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the FBI believes that Thomas Jacob Stanford's attack on the LDS Michigan Church was motivated by hatred for people of the Mormon faith, which is what I was saying. The demonization of groups of people needs to stop. Agree. And yes, he was a Trump supporter. He was a little deranged. Not political. Violence in general shouldn't happen. And again, we do have to wait until we find out the actual motive. Was his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend going to that church? Why did he target that church specifically when there were like 3 other churches on his path, etc.?
Okay, that's all I'm saying. Let's just think about what's going on here.
What?
You're telling me because this girlfriend was going into the church, he's going to shoot up the church. If you actually investigated this case, you would know. Hold on.
There's no way to investigate it yet.
I'm going to tell some information if you can let me speak.
Okay, tell the information.
Okay, he had a child with disabilities. And if the child with disabilities also went to the church, then in my mind, I could justify if somebody within the church, which the church actually had previous being investigated for bad things being done to children, had done something to his children, then possibly I can see a justification for shooting up the church. I'm not saying it's right in any way, shape, or form, but it would put me into the suspect's head much more if something happened to his child within the church.
Okay, do you want me to go into the article?
No, we can keep going.
No, let's go into the article.
Okay.
What we know about, from BBC, what we know about Michigan church shooting and arson attack, investigators are searching for a motive after a gunman opened fire at a Mormon church in Michigan and set the building on fire, ending 4 people. Officials said the attack on the LDS Church in Grand Blanc, a town 60 miles northwest of Detroit, happened during a Sunday service attended by hundreds of people. They have named the suspect Thomas J. Samforth, 40, from Burton, Michigan, who was ended by police soon after the shooting. Speaking at a news conference on Monday, officials said the incident was a targeted act of violence, but they have not yet ascertained his motive. And
what did you have to say about the North Carolina case as well?
I actually haven't researched that much about that one.
Okay.
Though the officials have not given a motive, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Fox News that Samford was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. Officials have said the suspect was a former Marine who was once deployed to Iraq. Samford told local outlet Clarkson News that he was a sergeant in the Marines and was deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2007. I'm excited to go, he told the newspaper. There are many changes we are making in the Middle East. We are making progress. Samford had previous arrests for burglary and operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Officials said on Monday not much information is available about the suspect's political beliefs, but his Facebook profile features a photo of him in 2019 wearing what appears to be a shirt promoting a Google Street View, which is what you were talking about, of a property linked to Samford. Also appears to show a pro-Trump sign outside the house. Samford also appeared to be the father of a son who had a serious health issue, according to posts from his family and a fundraising page. Samford is from a suburb of about 30,000 people, a few miles away from Grand Blanc Township.
Okay.
I don't know much about the other one. I just know they were both Marines.
Okay. We can go into the next story if you want. Now that we have no viewers.
Well, I said I disavow it.
Well, I would say that is not politically motivated violence, and people on the right are not cheering it on before we got in the big argument. So I don't see a cycle of violence happening here. You may have conservative individuals come up individually that are disgruntled in their life with their girlfriend, or something might have happened to their children, and them acting out violently. And a lot of these characters seem to be ex-military, possibly PTSD, and maybe SSRIs as well, because veterans hospitals do prescribe antidepressants and things like that a lot. So I could see SSRIs being a very linked connector between left and right-wing violence here. Yes. The difference is left-wing violence seems to be politically motivated, where it seems to be individually motivated when it's on the right.
For now.
For now, yeah.
And yes, there was also a shooting in
But I am definitely going to call out, because all of these stories, I notice on left-wing media, they're calling out right-wing violence, and on right-wing media, they're calling out left-wing violence. I specifically put there for a reason to show there is violence, but I also want to show the difference and motivations between the violence.
And in reactions, like most people on the right, although I did see, I'll talk about that after, but most people on the right are condemning it and saying this is an attack on churches, this is an attack on faith, we can't continue on like this, but they're not saying, like the anti-Mormons are saying, yay, good. However, we have seen discussions on X about the validity of the Mormon faith, etc., and to that I would say it's not the time to do that.
Well, and I also did want to point out the fact that, yeah, he did have a Trump sign. He was definitely a Trump supporter, in my opinion. That being said, I would place that in possible right-wing violence, but in the future, what we're going to have, especially in Michigan where this happened, there is a tension boiling between the Muslim community and other communities. And if Muslims do shootings in churches or somewhere else, it's actually considered right-wing violence. And that's what ups the stats for right-wing violence a lot.
Yes, on the few statistics we do have and that have been done and that are searchable and findable,
right-wing violence has been broadened out statistically, where left-wing violence has been narrowed down statistically. Therefore, it makes right-wing violence look a lot bigger than it actually is.
So, for example, a lot of the trans shootings weren't categorized as any kind of political violence at all, while a lot of things on the right wing aren't actually coming from the right wing or from a right-wing ideology, at least in modern times.
Yeah. And I can see left-wing violence happening as well, where it would be maybe a Biden supporter, a trans supporter, but it not being politically motivated. That's possible. But as of recent, they have left notes. They have inscribed things on bullets. So it's very obvious this left-wing violence has been politically motivated, and it was cheered on by the left on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's continue the story. I had researched a lot about that story, so I just wanted to make
research. Rafa put a little sad face.
I love
we don't fight, we argue. This is how we talk to each other usually.
I like arguing with you though.
Because we debate. We both do like debating. We just try not to do it here because it upsets people's sensibilities. Okay. But that's just how we communicate. And we always know, like, we don't hold a grudge or we don't actually take it seriously. That's just how we
I have to live with her, so.
I have to live with him. But apparently Tulsi has uncovered documents. This is from Chicago One Way. Has uncovered documents that were hidden for 10 years showing Obama may have doctored intel to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the 2016 election.
Okay, let's play this.
And we playing all of it or just?
It's 8 minutes. Yeah, let's put on 2 times speed and then we'll pause it throughout so we don't get dinged.
I think people just don't know. I won't go into
the Director of National Intelligence.
Well, I was going to say, like, when people react that way to us, like when we talk
I find it entertaining.
I know, I find it entertaining too, but maybe when they do it with their spouses, they don't have these like regular conflicts, or they don't try not to disagree on anything, and then they think that we are actually fighting, but we're not. But I guess
okay, let's play.
However people relate to each other.
Tulsi Gabbard releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by sitting President Barack Obama and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama. There were 4 key elements from the assessment that were repeated over and over again and formed the basis of the Russia hoax and the Robert Mueller witch hunt. 1, that Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to win. 2, Putin took action to help Trump win. 3, the Russians had blackmail on Trump. That was the Steele dossier. And 4, that the Russians tried colluding with the Trump campaign. None of any of this was ever true. There was no reliable intelligence to support any of these allegations. Senior CIA officials repeatedly refused to traffic in these allegations, but they were repeatedly overruled by CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey, who insisted that they be pushed.
Now, the reason I'm bringing this article up, because we've brought this up quite a few times. There is new evidence now, but Brennan and Comey are both being not only investigated but indicted. One's been brought in front of a grand jury. They had to do it now because the timeline was running out. They did this under the Barack Obama administration, so there was a 5-year statute of limitations on this thing. I got 4 years and quite a few months, so it had to be brought now. So that's part of the reason a lot of these indictments are being brought up.
Yes, they only had until September 30th to actually publish and do the
And
thing.
one other thing is Barack Obama most likely won't be indicted for this because he has immunity because they gave Trump immunity as well. All presidents now have immunity when they're doing things in the course of their actual work, even if it was underhanded like this. But that doesn't mean they can't go after the other people, and Trump is going after those other people. So
You want to continue seeing it, or?
no, that was pretty good.
We do have an opinion from Canada, from Antonio Tweets saying, make it make sense.
We used to have this exact view from our window.
Yes, from our second apartment. We're not a serious country. Back in Vancouver, so this is in Vancouver. Let's see. He says, what do we do backwards?
There's a funny little story I've been hearing. So in British Columbia, it's now banned to take natural gas in a gas plant and turn it into electricity that you put out on the grid for customers. That's now being phased out, but we still need electricity from natural gas. So here's what's happening now. This is literally happening today, is natural gas is being drilled and extracted in a remote part of British Columbia. It's put into a big pipeline. The pipeline goes to the south, crosses the U.S. border into the USA, into Washington State. It goes to a gas generation plant, and it's turned it to electricity. Those electrons are put onto the system, onto the grid, and they're shipped back to British Columbia. And we're using the electricity from natural gas that we say shouldn't be allowed, but we're using it every day.
And also they have to pay more for it because it's being shipped to the United States and then shipped back. I know a lot about this because I used to work in the mining industry. And in the mining industry, they have overregulated themselves to such an extreme that we drill out the raw ore, we put it on trains, we ship it to the United States, they do all the refining, and then we buy the finished products back from them. So it's crazy. Why don't they do that? Why aren't they self-sufficient and do their own refining themselves?
Yes. Just insanity. Do you want to go over to our UMBLE, or?
How many more stories do we have?
Well, we might not be able to get through all of them.
Oh, of course we are. I'm enjoying it so much.
We end at 8.
Okay, let's go to the RUMBLE.
Hold on. Thank you, Rafa, for all your comments. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed here on YouTube, please do so. As Rafa said, we are like 13 away from getting to 500, so we can at least half monetize. But yes, we're going over to RUMBLE or X. Now we're streaming on both of those as well, so we'll see you over there in a second.
And if you want to see us fight more, come over to Rumble.
RUMBLE. It's like he does it on purpose.
But be stupid.